Somebody laughed at that comment. Wish you were dead. This is what this son is saying to his father. I wish you were dead. Give me my inheritance. Let me do with it as I want. I think even in our own culture, which is just become a very crass culture, I think the feel and the sense of this statement from the son can be heard by us. The rudeness of this request. I wish you were dead. In a deep patriarchal culture that Jesus is telling this story in, the people gathered around Jesus, the women would have gone, woo, like that. That's exactly how I envision them doing this. The men would have said, well, they would have said nothing, but they would have looked very seriously and sternly and negatively at this story, this person in this story, this younger son. And I said, This son is a scandal. Storytelling in their culture is the equivalent of going to the movies. And so here the people in the audience are just left shocked by such a rude and destructive and blatant rebellion. Rebellion. This is the story of rebellion. It can be rude and blatant and destructive. You, as a rebel, the chief issue is who has power. So I, as a rebel, would say to perhaps one seated on the throne of power, excuse me, but you're in my seat. And so this rebel, he says this to his father, excuse me, you're in my seat. I'm the one who should be in charge. I'm the one who knows what to do with this life. And so please get out of my seat so that I can take my rightful place. The story of rebellion with God is of us saying to God again and again and again, you're in my seat. You're in my seat, God. So when Adam and Eve are tempted, the issue of temptation is your eyes will be open and you will be like God. You start telling God that He's in your seat. So you have this rebellion going on in our own culture, in our own movies, from James Dean to Where the Wild Things Are. This story of rebellion is powerful and pervasive. It's part of how we tell our whole story. It's part of the story of our country, right? How did we begin as a country? Briefly, July 4th, 1776, I didn't ring a bell. We have this revolution, which is also happens to be called a rebellion. This rebellion takes place. And so we as people, we have this kind of ingrained into us, this story of it's good to say to the one in power, you need to move out of power. You're in my place. You move out of control so that I can take up control. I mean, this becomes even part of our election cycle, our kind of political process. You know, every 4 years we seem to have this little mini rebellion going on. Jesus is echoing the chief item of sin here. On the day that you eat of this tree, you will be like God. The son saying to the father that you're not doing a good enough job, let me take your seat. The son thinks that he should control his own destiny. And so I wish you were dead, God. Now, it's a good thing that Jesus is talking about them and not us, because we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't say that. We're much smoother than that. We're much better than the youngest son in the way in which we go about what we do. We don't tell God that we wish He was dead. Just tell Him to get out of our seat. We have big plans. We have our own purposes where we're going for what we want. Or we're tired of listening to you. This is a story of rebellion. You hear it in teenagers with their parents. You hear it in adults with their jobs. You hear the story of rebellion again and again and again. And there's three things that the story of rebellion leads to. And there are the three things that are highlighted in this story. A rebellion, it will lead to isolation. Eventually you go so far that there's nobody else but you and the pigs. Eventually, this isolation will lead to desolation. There's just emptiness. And this story of rebellion, this isolation, this desolation, leads to getting enslaved. All because you wanted your power. That's the story of the first son. The first son says to his father, "You're in my seat. I want your power. I want to make my own decisions." Second son, "I wish he were dead." There's a very nice kind of subtle difference in the second son. He's really angry that the son who was dead and is now alive is now here. "I wish he were dead. I wish he would have gone back. The son who devoured your property with prostitutes. You killed the fattened calf for him. This son who did nothing for you, who took everything from you. This son should not be here." It's, of course, the story of anger. The story of anger. You have the story of rebellion where you're sitting in my seat, it's time for you to move. This is the story of anger. It begins in the land of comparison. The story of anger looks at what he got and what I didn't get. The story of anger, eventually it colors the entire world for what it is for you. They will get better or more or deeper love than me. They're the favorite child. Any person in a multi-sibling family, you know what I'm talking about. There's a favorite child. There is. It wasn't me. What was it? I don't know what that means. But the story of anger in the older brother is a story that whispers sweetly and fairly seductively that God isn't interested in me. That he's much more interested in that person who went away, who abandoned the faith, who abandoned the relationship, and now look at him, this wonderful son who's finally come back. You know, it makes it very difficult for people who've been lifelong people of faith sometimes to be part of the story of Jesus, because sometimes it seems like Jesus is only really interested in the people who went and screwed up their lives and who left and who abandoned everything and who took all of this stuff, who said to God, their Father, "I wish you were dead." Jesus seems to only want the repentant sinners who have their worlds fall apart. Jesus is interested in prostitutes and drug addicts. Is Jesus really interested in me? Is he really interested in those who've been here all along? And so jealousy takes hold. Jealousy takes hold. The story of rebellion, if it's a story of you're sitting in my seat, you need to move so that I can be the one in power and control. By the way, these seats are awesome for like power and control issues. You can sit here very throne-like. The story of anger is like the story of Cain and Abel. The story of anger is he's loved more. He's the one who seems like he's getting it all from God. And so Cain goes out into the field with his brother, and he takes a rock, and he bashes him on the head. Because this story of anger becomes deeply ingrained into the way in which we are, in which we live. There's this parable that Jesus is talking about. He's telling this parable to people who were pretty much like us. Good religious folk who didn't get into a whole lot of trouble. Jesus, when he's telling this parable, he's saying it to people who started the whole thing with that question, right? Really not even a question, a statement. A statement that he eats with these kinds of people. And good religious people who've been sitting there, perhaps nursing their own jealousy, who said, well, I've been here all along. What are you doing with them?